Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Lisa Thompson, and I'm the General Manager for Environmental Services, which is Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota utility. And happy to welcome you back from your vacation break. Hopefully, you had a couple days off last week, or at least one. And I think it would be great, as Scott mentioned, to do a quick go around. And so my name is Lisa. I think it's also kind of fun sometimes to start out a meeting with what's your rating your energy and your focus, with 5 being high and 1 being low, because it's helpful to know if someone's having trouble focusing, then the team that we're meeting will understand if they don't seem quite as sharp on the focus of the meeting as they normally are. And then, of course, energy, if that's high or low, that also makes a difference in how you show up. So the intent here is to support each other with the conditions that we're in as we arrive at this meeting. And I'll say I had extra time off last week, so I'm high on energy. I'll give myself a 5 for energy and 5 for focus. So with that, I think probably we can just proceed down the listing of participants, and I can call on you if that makes the most sense, or you can just we can do popcorn.
These folks are shy. Maybe I can just call on them, Lisa.
All right, well then this will give me a chance to work on pronunciations of names. So Kaisra, help me get this pronunciation on that.
Kaisra.
Go ahead and introduce yourself then. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Kaisra Osman. I work for the Great Lakes Water Authority on the asset management, the enterprise asset management team, supporting the local asset management groups in managing assets. And 5 on energy and 5 on focus today. Energy being off for 4 days, so like you said, pumped up with a lot of turkey and mashed potatoes. And focus because I'm excited to be part of the UAIM. So this is my first, I shouldn't say introduction, because Scott introduced us to UAIM, I think about 3 years ago, Scott, or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
This is the first time I am participating.
Very good, thanks. And then it looks like Joseph. Is that correct?
That is correct, Lisa. My name is Joseph Cabeda. I am the acting bureau head for the Bureau of Water Wastewater in the city of Baltimore. I'm actually on leave this week, but I really value and love this group, so I just thought I'd take this hour out. So my focus, I would say, I'm still about 4 or 5. Energy, 5. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Mark.
Hi, everyone. Mark Poling. I'm visiting this group today. I'm one of the leads for organizational culture. I'm also been on one of the principals for the project. I would say, and I work with Clean Water Services. And I would say I'm a 4 and a 4, and only because I don't drink much caffeine anymore. But when I do, that's when I'm 5 and 5.
Just got my cup, in fact.
Yeah.
All right, Mert.
Yes, good morning. My name is Mert Maftugil, and I'm in the asset management branch with the Portland Water Bureau. I would say my energy is about a 3, just too early for me. My brain is more like a diesel engine. It takes a while to get going. And my focus, I would say it's 4, thanks to a lot of coffee already. Thank you.
Fred.
Hey, good morning. Fred Ng from Loudon Water here in Northern Virginia. Work in HR and learning and development, manager of learning and development. And I'd say my energy is about 3. I think same as Merit, energy is about 3 and focus is 4. Hopefully, be closer to 5 by the end of the meeting.
All right, that brings us down to Scott and
Yes, Scott Haskins, supporting the project team and all of you. And I'd say that I'm usually a 5 and a 5, so I'll go with that.
All right, Cello, do you have energy and focus today?
Yeah, I think so. And I think if I had more, it'd probably be illegal. So, so, and I haven't had coffee. So,
On that note, I better take the floor back from you, so to speak. So you have the agenda. Hopefully everybody can see it displayed. Our outcomes for the meeting are the important thing for us to begin to focus on, because you're all responsible to help us make sure that's what we accomplish in our time together. We hope to have an understanding of the workshop plan and know about these videos and instructions that Cello has put together for us. And we want to know, we want you all to be thinking about adding stickies on the mural, which was highlighted in the video instructions, and we'll talk more about here in a second. And then understanding of the prep requirements for the workshop. So as I recall, I wrote down the date here. I think it's the for the workforce group. It's coming up on the 14th, is it?
that's correct.
And so today we want to make sure that we're getting everything we need to get prepared or know that we need to do before that workshop. So that plan, and Cello has some information to share with us there, and I think he might even go through his videos if not very many folks have had a chance to look at those yet. They're pretty short. I have looked at them. Actually, I looked at the second one twice, Cello. It was so good I had to watch the second
Okay,
one.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Let me just ask a question, and please, this is just for information and to make the meeting better. It's not to put anybody on spot. I sent out this email with links to 2 videos. One is 6 minutes, the other one is 7 minutes. I just want to get a sense how many people watched it and how many people haven't watched it, because if most people haven't watched it, I'll go through and explain what's there, but I don't want to be doing that if everybody's already seen the video. So, are there, let me go this way. Are there folks on the call who have not seen the video? And you can just raise your hand. So, okay, so let me see. So I don't see any raised hands. Okay, one, okay. Anybody else that has not seen the video? Okay, so I'll go through this just very, very quickly, and quicker than the videos were, and just give people a little bit of a reminder and an opportunity to ask questions. So give me just 1 second. Okay.
So Cello,
yes.
while you're bringing that up, this is Susan. I just wanted to let you guys know that Jen is still having problems with her computer. So I have her on speaker on my cell phone.
Okay.
So she's not able to interact at all through the Teams session right now. So we're going to look at that after the meeting. But I have her on speaker if you need to speak with her about anything.
Okay.
And Susan, it looks like her messages, or at least there was one at 9:41 that came through. So her system must be allowing her to chat, if nothing else.
She said it's hit or miss.
Okay, good. Well, bad, but good to know.
Okay, so I'm not, so this is, give me just a second. So this is just the, components of value creation. These are the things, people, processes, and technology that have been really commonly referred to as the components of a value creation. And there's also a certain level of maturity that can be associated with each one of them. And on the left is the improvement methodology that we have defined for this project. This starts up here with assess system maturity. So we what I'll go through is just quickly show an example of going around this cycle on the when it comes to business process models and the business processes. So we had a maturity model from CMMI. It's a capability maturity model that shows how well a system could work, and it goes from level 1 to 5. So that is sort of like the grading sheet that we have. And if we look at it in more detail, we can see that there are different levels and characteristics associated with each one of these levels. So therefore, on level 1, it's, you know, just knowledge is in the heads of individuals, and level 2 is it's within a team, and then on level 3, it is documented. On level 4, we're managing processes in a quantitative way based on metrics, and then 5 is sort of continuous improvement. So we're going to look for something equivalent to this for workforce and the organizational culture. Now, once we have this sort of grading sheet, scoring sheet, we know how a system could work, but then we have to have an assessment method to say, well, how does it actually work in our case? So this is the second bubble when we try to analyze our own specific situation. So I'm going to show an example from Grand Rapids when they did this analysis on business processes, and they did this on a process called CROMER, Cross Media Electronic Reporting Rule from EPA. So what it helps us a lot in this type of analysis is if we have a system model that describes how something works. And in our system example here, it was a process, our definition of system. When it comes to workforce, our system will be workforce or organizational culture, and we'll look at different ways how we can show how they work, what are the components and so forth. So a system model, so for example, if this was a sewer, you'd have a hydraulic model. If it was a treatment plant, you have a kinetics model and so forth. So a business process model tells us a lot about this process. It's written here on the screen. You can go through to the video to look at the detail. So Mike Stahl and his team, they showed how the process works, and then they simulated to see where the bottlenecks and how they could be fixed. So that's this analysis. And then they designed, which is the third bubble, a process that they would like to have, and compared the simulation between the as is and to be, and found out that they can save a lot of money and a lot of time. So this then was a powerful tool to get funds to actually go and make these changes. It was easier to convince people. So they did the same thing that you would do if you ran a hydraulic model for a sewer. And then so the system was used to design this to be system state. And when we documented the processes, that thing alone put us on level 3 because they were standardized. And then after that, we would develop a plan. And then we get into the situation where we don't only have to think about processes, we have to think about people and technology for change management. So when we in the next bubble is monitoring performance and impact, and if we're doing this according to metrics, and that would then put us on level 4. So what we've done is we've expanded this people thing into three components: organizational culture, workforce, and change management. And on the right side is this new conceptual model that we have. So that is going to be our sort of homework. Just a second. That is going to be our homework for in next workshop, to develop equivalent things, the maturity models workforce and organization culture. I want to see if there are any hands up, if anybody has any questions at this point. Okay.
Casra, do you have your hand up?
Oh, no. Is that from before?
Yes.
Oh, I apologize.
I'm gonna, instead of going through the second video, which shows the mechanics on how things work and stuff like that, I'm gonna do an abbreviated version. Give me just 1 second.
So it will be important to look at that video.
Yeah.
To give you the more detailed, and actually Lisa said she went through it twice, and I think if everybody goes through it twice, it's going to help them because, you know, it's fairly detailed and would give you a more complete understanding.
Give me just a second. So I'm gonna, can everybody see
yes.
Okay. So we're gonna be working on the first bubble, which is the assess system maturity. We're gonna do that for workforce and the organization. We're gonna do this using Mural. And if you look at the video, it'll have sort of technical information of how to get into Mural, and we're gonna test it in a couple of minutes. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at components of, this is for organizational culture, for example, in a way to create this rating scale. And we've developed a structure that has 5 components from trust and collaboration, values and purpose, control, authority, or where the power resides, accountability, and attention to results. So each one of these things, I put little, we put little explanations of what we would look at when we think about defining these characteristics. And then we're going to do the same thing for workforce. And we also added some things that are characteristic. They just say, okay, you know, how do you know that there's fairness and inclusion or purpose? And then we're going to further develop the characteristics. So what I'm going to do next is stop sharing. And I'm going to send you something in the chat. You'll need to look at the chat thing. And where is my, oh, there it is. Sorry. So.
Oh, the second.
Yeah, I have sun
icon.
coming in my face when I turn that way. I can't. So I'm sorry.
And this was constructed, by the way. This team has spent time identifying stickies and categories and everything, and this is just continuing that work.
Yeah, so if you look at this link that's in your chat, let me know if you can open it. And
enter as a visitor.
Yes, you will enter as a visitor, and I see that several of you are in there already. And you will see that for workforce, we have 4 of these things, and there are these notes are from our previous meeting where people said, okay, what defines a 1, which is what we don't want, and what defines 5, which is what we've sort of aspirational. So that's on these red, pink, or green stickers. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be essentially moving these stickers around. So I'm going to ask Fred to move this sticker, lack of respect for each other, and kind of put it where he thinks that this would belong. That's okay. So that's how we're going to work with this. And we're going to if we have too many people, and then if you look at on the left side, there's a menu on the left side, a bar, and click on the one that is the second from the top, that if you hover over it, it'll say text. And if you click on it, it will open up a menu on the left side that you can stickies and drag them to the place on the left and just type something in. And that's right, Mark and Fred are doing it already. So if you click on it, yes, Fred's doing it. So, and Lisa's doing it and stuff like that. So we can start simulating, like we're having a whiteboard with everybody can put in their input, and we can discuss it, compile notes that would then be helpful for us to structure this, define the characteristics for these components of the workforce maturity model. So, I'm going to pause now and see if people have comments, questions, or suggestions. Okay, give me just a second. I'm not hearing anybody, so I'm gonna.
So Kassara, you haven't been through the creation of that, but does that make sense to you?
Yes. Yep.
So we'll start a discussion, and Scott, if you can maybe, I have to go turn off the thermostat because I'm cooking here. So if you can just talk about maybe doing that 5 level, I'll be back in like 30 seconds. But if you can talk about, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'll be right back.
I got it. Yeah, one of the things that we've discovered is that it's important to say, what are we aspiring to be? You know, in terms of these characteristics under these categories. And so it's probably most important to focus on the green stickers, which are 5s. The 1 stickers are almost the opposite of 5s in what we've discovered. So if you have, you know, basically, I'll just make one up, lack of fear, you know, basically you operate in an environment without fear and trust, then a 1 would be the opposite of that. But so we are likely to want to know what are 5s to a little greater extent than the 1s, but then we will be able to say, well, how fully is that capability developed in the organization from a maturity standpoint to basically realize those 5s. And we'll have a way of identifying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 definitions of what those are, so we can kind of fit things in. But I see you're back, Cello. So
yes, sorry about that.
No worries. Cool down there.
Yeah.
Good to know that that sweat that broke out on you wasn't from us.
No. No. So
Scott, I like the shifting our focus or keeping our focus towards the aspiration side, because I think it becomes much easier once we have solidly what is that desired state look like. Then it's easy to kind of scale it back to, if you're not all the way there, where would you be along that continuum potentially?
Right, and sometimes it may turn out that, I mean, it's not completely quantitative, it's subjective, but it's a subjective evaluation with some specific criteria that we have, so that if you're going through a maturity, you know, and actually an assessment of where you're at, then you're able to place, you know, scores 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, against each one of the different categories and the detail under it. Cello, I thought it would be maybe useful to go back to the slide that you showed earlier that had those descriptors under the.
Yes, give me just 1 second. Give me just 1 second.
Scott, you might be heading in the direction I was thinking, which is I think it's important the group consider whether the categories that are there cover the topic in a way that's complete enough. I guess it's, we don't want to be exhaustive because we are not going to have the opportunity, but if we can make sure that we've covered what's important. And then maybe to that point, we've got fairness and inclusion as one category. I'm not sure that I see it as one, or if maybe that's two separate ones, but I'm just throwing that out there for others to comment on and for that to become part of the possible discussion we have. I'm complete.
Yeah. So Lisa, maybe you want to facilitate us through the process of basically looking at those categories and getting some feedback, and then looking at the the statements, the descriptions that are under them. We have characteristics that we've already identified, and we'll come up with more in the workshop. But does this fairly represent the right categories and descriptions, or are there things missing, or what have you? So if you want to, maybe you gave one observation, maybe you have others, and getting feedback from and participation by those on the phone. Mert had to leave, I think people might have noticed, and same with Mark. Mark is using this meeting kind of to get ready for his own meeting that's going to cover the same kind of ground. So that was useful, I'm sure.
So I was thinking when you were going to pull up the graphic, I was thinking of the one that had autonomy bubble, a circle with a little drop down and some things listed, and mastery and purpose, and then motivation. Do you have that one handy? Because I think that has a little bit more description around what's meant by each of those categories.
Yeah, I can, let me see if I can find that slide. I can say that just to explain what this slide is, oops, sorry. These gray things, they actually come out of something that I discovered Parijat shared with me. I think what you may have thought about, Elisa, is this slide.
Yes.
Yes. Give me just a second.
Actually, if you go, yep, number 7, slide number 7 looks like the one I was thinking of.
Is that, I'm sorry, is that the one?
Yes.
Let me just,
I have a quick question. So
sure.
So what we're doing here is on December 14th, this workshop, and then people are going to break into groups, and this is where they're going to be working on this. Is that the idea? I'm sorry, I'm kind of new, so I'm trying to understand. What's the goal here that we're trying to achieve?
Well, the goal is that our goal is to apply this improvement methodology that would start with assessing where we are. What are we doing now? Are we doing well? Where are we on a scale? So to just establish a range of capabilities in these different categories, the same way we've done it for the business processes, and the same way that it can be done for technology. So we're really at step 1, where we're trying to provide some structure that says, how would you, when you walk into an organization, what is, step 2 is to evaluate where you are, but we want to define a framework for evaluation so that we all look at the similar things as process of evaluation. So that, let's say that, if we want to go to the dealership and we want to buy a car, if we have a list of things, what are we, what is a good car that we want and what is not, and then we have a methods to go through and check, okay, does it, can I fit my kids in here, can I go fast, can I go far, or whatever. So we're really working on that step one, which is defining a capability maturity model.
So this particular workshop's goal is to kind of identify that initial, what are in a way our strengths, our weaknesses, or where we want to be.
That is correct. Yes. So we would like to have a standard scale.
Right.
So that we have a scale that says, so for example, if this was mathematics in school, okay, between 90 and 100, is A, but what kind of, we need to define this in how do you, in a structure that allows us to have a model and know what are the components of things, what are you going to look at, and stuff like that.
Cello, I would go, Lisa, Cello did some additional research and found that the federal government is using a particular model, and he was going to maybe, kind of preview that a little because it's a complete and integrated than what we had before in the Thomas Pink model. So,
Yeah.
Cello, were you going to go back and look at a slide in that, or did you want to just go to this other slide?
Well, I think you can see the other one now as well, right?
Yep.
Okay. So these gray stickers is that this framework for motivation is really very popular. The person who developed is a consultant who wrote a best-selling book and defined what motivation is. And we added a layer, fairness and inclusion, as a foundation. And so we had up there motivation and then a sense of fairness and inclusion. So that's how we constructed it. And this was based, but the literature that I looked at did not include one source, which Pari just shared with me. And that source is a Office of Personnel Management in the federal government has actually a maturity model and a assessment method that they use on all the federal employees to look at the workforce. It's very comprehensive. And the difference is that the model that is shown here does not it tells you it tells you things, but it doesn't come with an assessment method, which means it doesn't tell you, okay, this is how you can actually measure whether it's there is enough autonomy, mastery, and purpose. But the one from the federal government actually comes with an assessment method that has specific questions. So these gray sticky notes here come from the characteristics from the Office of Personnel Management. So these are the characteristics that they have found. And what I've done is, to stay consistent, I've mapped these characteristics to the areas that we have already predefined, both for the organizational culture, where's my mouse, and for workforce. So these, the text here are the things from Office of Personnel Management structure. And if we look at it, it kind of fits fairly well. And the benefit that is a pre-baked pre-baked assessment method. Because if we look at, for example, employees feel empowered to take responsibility, what it does is it tells you, okay, to find that out, here are a list of 4 questions that you can ask in a survey, and here's the information. Okay, this is from the federal government employees, but it gives you some information and baseline for benchmarking and with a bunch of other organizations. They did this for like 1.5 million people. So I was trying to, and since I'm not a human resources professional, I wasn't aware of this work by Office of Personnel Management. And Parijat was very helpful in pointing that out. And then I also went into this was my Thanksgiving break. And I went into the literature that they cited in that study and found some quite fascinating examples of models and stuff that they used, that the federal government used as a reference, one of the key references in their work. So this is the reference that I'm talking about. It's a new framework for employee engagement. It comes from Rutgers. It's written by William Castellano. And I didn't want to, I was kind of hesitant to go into this. It's very exhaustive, very detailed, and presents a very, very good model that has sort of the people side on the left. And then if you go to the next page, it has the personal traits and the engagement on the organizational side on the right. So it's so you can see the stuff that people were making, that were talking about before, psychological safety and availability. So it's all kind of baked in. Now,
the things that we've talked about already seem to be, pretty, seem to be organized around this.
Yes. So, and there's a balance between doing something this rigorous, which is, appropriate for them, but may not be appropriate for water utilities. And I thought that if we merge that with the sort of stuff like Daniel Pink and the motivation in the organizational culture, I wanted to marry the two so that we can have still a fairly kind of something that's accessible, something that it's easy to find these books and talks. They've been very well accepted and popular, but to when we define the characteristics, that we use these from that we feel are appropriate from the Office of Personnel Management. And when you look at these characteristics, it seems like they kind of make sense to me.
But Lisa, there may be some things that are missing here too.
Sure.
Well, I'm going to really, not
go
to
ahead.
frustrate people. And I can't quite say it's an insight yet, but it's something that just keeps tapping on my brain, going, connecting all this together. So we're working on change management, culture, and workforce.
That's correct.
So ES has been on this journey of trying to more engaged workforce, trying to change, right? What's been clearer to me as we've spent years now working at this, that the workforce is key in some very significant ways. And it's about change management for your workforce. So what does that mean? If we want this more engaged, so if you take the culture results that we got another group that's looking at, what's the culture of a mature organization that we aspire to. From the workforce side, we have to figure out how to get there and what the gaps are between where we are and getting there. So we can architect the changes that are needed with the workforce to support that kind of a culture. So, what's the gap between skill sets and things of that sort? And, and the structure that goes along, of course, those things are all important. But if employees don't have what they need to behave in an engaged culture, the way we're trying to do that work in the organization, you'll get held back. The change won't happen. And so, for us, it's things like training employees how to be facilitators for their own meetings so that all the voices, the inclusion piece can actually happen. To not be so top down thinking you've got to have the ability to bring a group of people together and make a decision as a group. And so all those are skill sets that the old traditional organization wouldn't have had or been utilizing. So we have to have enough of those new skill sets in our workforce in order to support the organization showing up that way on a big enough scale to make it be the new model versus, oh, we have some good examples of inclusive decision making, but doesn't happen in this part of the organization at all. Well, that's not going to get the organization to meet its full aspiration. So I just throw that out there that I feel like describing that engaged, empowered organization is probably the easy part. The hard part is coming up with a change plan
Mhm.
for ensuring that your workforce can go there. So that's just a thought that I thought might be worth at this stage of the game sharing.
Cello, did you want to?
Yeah, I think that I think it's very consistent with. I would be in full agreement. At the end of the day, we would like to have something that's actionable, that's practical, and that people can use. And the things that you mentioned are correct. The way one of the things that resonated with me as I was reading, I've been reading a lot of this stuff lately, is that I read somewhere about this seed and field theory. So, which I think is really, really fitting because the workforce is really like a seed and the organization is a field. So you cannot get a healthy plant. You could have the best seed, but if you put it on in the parking lot, you're not going to get the best result. You could have a most fertile ground, but maybe if the seed isn't right, the plant, you plant and you really, you wanted to grow peaches, but you're going to get a cactus. So it's really, although we're looking at them separately, and the reason to look at them separately was a result of a discussion between utilities about a year ago. And they said, well, these are the things we want to look at. And as far as change management, I actually took the time to get certified in ADCAR, and I read about this, but a lot of these things, what I found is that change management is really defined as a process. So if we look at the Association for Change Management and we look at their standards and documents, if we look at ADCAR, it's really about steps of the process that's kind of takes people into consideration about making projects work, if you will. So what we're doing here is trying to create something to connect all these dots. And there are a lot of challenges. And we're dealing with complexity. I simply didn't find many examples out there that had an appealing diagram that kind of makes sense to you, but they also then had a assessment methodology to know where you are on that diagram. There's diagram, everybody's got a diagram, and then also a methodology for how do you improve the maturity. I haven't found anything like that in the literature. And So I think the fact that we have some of the most advanced utilities, I think, around on this project, and nobody's saying, oh, we got all this covered, why are we doing this, is an indication that this is a problem that hasn't been completely solved. So I think that the reason why I use that business process thing is because this can be done, and we can also do it and would have to do it in such a way that we don't have to boil the ocean, that we don't have to change the entire organizational culture before we can do anything. So there are some ideas that I've laid out in that were laid out in some of the other for us to start small. But it is, we have 45 people involved on the improvement initiatives, 45 people and increasing on these people issues. So it's about, and there's an African proverb that I read someplace, and it really, they said, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go as a group. So, getting a group of folks to get on the same page to attack something that, we have pieces, but to connect the pieces, a remarkable effort. And I agree with everything you said, Lisa, and just saying, we were trying to lay out kind of stepwise methodology for that.
So we need to get to next steps and close the meeting, but I just wanted to go back to Lisa's. I think the two of you actually are saying the same thing, but my little quick practical version is that what we're doing is we're looking at workforce, we're looking at organizational culture, we're identifying what maturity would look like from an aspirational standpoint, and then we're using change management to say, after you assess basically how, and you want to focus on some things, how do you get from, your as is to to be? And change management can be defined as a process of how you get there. So the change management team is going to be looking at, and they already have been doing some work, using ADKAR as a primary example framework, of how you get from here to there. So it's a way in this model to integrate those things.
So not to belabor this, then are we, as with a focus on workforce, thinking about skill sets needed, or
I
more
think
broadly?
that I think it's more
Mastery.
broad. Yeah, I think it's more broad, and I think it includes things. Do people feel safe? Do people feel safe to bring something up in a meeting? Are people able to work across the different lines that separate different business units, which is a huge problem? So can they, does the structure provide them the ability to collaborate? And things like that. So I think it is, and again, it is not an easily solvable problem, but I think that we are, I see the structure, I see a path that we can take, and although we have started on the three separate efforts, they're so tightly intertwined. So what you're, Lisa, saying is, well, just looking at this, it's not enough. Of course it's not enough. Of course it's not enough. We had to do the Western thing, which is break it into parts, and then, look at every part. So we're not looking at the water pump, and you're saying, oh, you know what, water pump is fine, but what about all the other things? Well, yeah, I get it, but and it is, if you think about it, we have to do things remotely, which means we don't have a chance to have a week someplace to spend all three groups to have sessions and get together. We don't have any of that. So we're battling a few constraints, but I don't think that I think that what you're talking about is you took a step back and you saw the whole problem, and you say, and Yes, we should keep an eye on that, but it would be helpful if we at least start defining the maturity model, like what is the ratio of capabilities for each one of these. Then we get back in the room. So is it going to be quick? No, but we want to go far.
Okay, thank you. And we have a short amount of time left. We need to, I think, just make sure everybody in terms of closure, what do we need to be focusing on? What needs our attention between now and the workshop? So I don't know, we have the categories, you've got the introduction to mural. And I think that, Cello, you were thinking we would go in and add stickies between now and the workshop so that we have it a little more built out and to focus on the 5 category in terms of what the aspiration of workforce would be.
That was to focus on the 5 was Scott's idea, and I think it's very good. I think it'll also make for a bit more positive meeting, you know, and we only have an hour for each one of these sessions. So unfortunately, people will not be able to work directly in Mural. But what I can do is I can put a simple spreadsheet out there with these categories, and they can just suggest the sticky notes that I will then put in there. So because I can't, Mural doesn't allow me to open it up.
So in bottom line terms, Casra sessions, and we don't want to deal with that complexity in our 1 hour meeting. But what we do want to do is go through these categories. Later, we can fix the categories if we need to, you know, based on what the input is. But we want to identify additional characteristics that we would aspire to that we haven't already identified in a way, Lisa.
Yes.
That could fit into that framework and really build it out. And Cello is developing a spreadsheet that allows us to just step through that.
So Cello, why can't we go into Mural directly and add sticky notes on our own? Because I accessed it last night just fine.
You accessed it. Okay.
Yeah, I was curious and I put in all those separate little things because there wasn't a link and I plugged them all in. It took me there. I put my name in and I could have left you some surprises, but I didn't.
I will test it because I'll tell you what precipitates my caution. I bought a license for Mural and I tested it on Scott. Scott's the white rabbit, you know, and so I called Scott into a meeting, and as soon as I closed the meeting, I got an email from Mural that says, okay, you added a member, please pay us $150 or we're going to turn off, you know, we're going to cancel your subscription. So it kind of taught me to tread a little bit more carefully and lightly because I got to figure out. So if people are able to permanently, let me test this. Let's test this. And if people are able to reuse those links, that would be great. The only thing is that I'll have to rework the Mural a little bit just to provide more space. And I was under the impression that the links would be only let you do it during a session when I had it open. But if that's not correct, that's a useful piece of information.
But bottom line, the purpose that you're talking about, regardless of whether you use Mural to do it, is the homework is on your own, look at what's there, identify additional stickies, so to speak, or items, characteristics that should be included, get that information, you know, to us in advance if you can. If you can't, then it would be live during the meeting, and then we could build it out.
Okay, so let's, because we would like more contributions towards the level 5 for our model in the categories autonomy, mastery, purpose, and inclusion, which also includes fairness.
Yes.
And if you can get into the
Mural.
mural, go ahead and add your sticky notes there. You could send an email to Cello with your sticky note content and he will put it in there. Or also bring it to the meeting and we can add it there. Though the first option 1 and 2 are preferable because it'll help us go faster when we get to our workshop.
Okay. One thing that I also, I'll prepare an email for that and we'll test it. One thing that happened last time is that when people were mentioning, there were like 4 or 5 things that were basically all the same. You know, people are afraid to speak up. Okay. People's voices are not heard. People don't, you know, so and people have different people have different abilities to deal with mural, and spreadsheets is something that everybody knows. And you're the only one who went into mural on her own. You're the only one. So, you know, you're the you just labeled yourself as at least partially geek. So not anybody
I prefer
else.
early adopter now, come on.
Early adopter, yeah, you're an early adopter, and nobody else has done it, you know. And I was wondering what happens if somebody comes in and deletes half the sticky notes, or you know, but
This
we'll
group isn't
make it.
going to do that. So
Okay.
I'm not too
But
worried about
what
that.
what Cello, or before the workshop, it's possible to do some consolidation, so we're not
Yes.
looking at 5 sticky notes to say the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the other thing is that if you do see something that's already out there, don't reword it to be different. Just, can
Yeah.
we add to the sticky note if we feel like maybe, you know,
Sure.
if,
Sure.
you know, if somebody put in something and then, yeah, it's similar to what I have, but I had an extra point. Just add to the same sticky note as opposed to putting a whole new one in, which, you know.
Yeah, that's a great point, and you know, that's a great point. And so what I'll do is I'll start. We'll have a conversation like this regarding organizational culture thing. I'll use what we're doing here. I'll test what Lisa's saying. Scott will be the tester again, and then I will. So we have then 2 weeks. You know, it's 2 weeks from now that the workshop is. So we'll have a chance to kind of get things squared away.
Right?
Yeah, this
I'm
was a good
sorry.
conversation. I think we lost a few, but hopefully we got where we needed to so that